Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, March 19th, 2012. Welcome to City Hall. If you could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And at this time, to make our council meeting official, it is Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Pezza. Here. Gutenkopf. Here. Peter.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Polemski. Absent. York.
Here.
Pipskin.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Kennedy. Morley.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
13 present, 1 absent.
13 present, we have 1 absent. We have an official quorum. We move on to our next item, which is the public hearing for our budget.
That's pretty good.
There is a public hearing scheduled for this evening. The public hearing concerns the city's proposed 2012-2013 budget. I call the public hearing regarding the 2012 budget to order. I ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Pezza.
Here.
Gutenkopf.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Polemski. Absent. York.
Here.
Pipskin.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Morley.
Aye. Here.
Wagner.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
13 present, 1 absent.
All right, we have a quorum. The purpose of this hearing is to take public comment concerning the city's proposed 2012-2013 budget. I would ask that the clerk read any written communications concerning this matter into record. At this time, is there any anybody from the public signed up?
Yes, we have a few, Mr. Mayor. We can start with Jim Court, 153 North Hampshire.
That's fine.
And Mr. Court, as 3 minutes?
Sure. Yeah, you can say.
And just like any public hearing, it's 3 minutes for public comments, so just to give you a heads up.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Court.
Just a couple things. One is a compliment to the city police. My family is friends with Kyle Dealing, and the police department has been exceptionally supportive of that family. The other one, the other item, we had a little fire in our house, and I want to thank the fire department for showing up and doing a truly outstanding job. And the last question I want to pose to you guys, people have commented to me, public works employees, other people, what has been done to look at the staffing levels? There seems to be a perception that there are sometimes an excess of supervisory positions versus working. And you know what? I don't know the answer. I'm just throwing it out there, and that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Court.
Okay, next we have Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys.
Steve talked to her today, I think, or in a text.
My name is Claude Pagach. I live at 566 West Gladys. In regards to the budget, having been here and having listened to the budget on television, one thing I found that was extremely interesting was no matter who was part of it coming up to discuss their part of the budget, they never had enough. They needed more. They needed more money. They needed more help. Not one of them came up here and said, you know, guys, we're doing pretty well just the way things are. It's amazing. Year after year, it's the same song. We don't have enough. Unfortunately, I took a little time today and I went to a gun range. See, because the police department would like to have $250,000 for a gun range. That gun range has just been completed. You can shoot an artillery piece in the place. Cost the guy $500,000 just for his venting system. He allows the police any police officer, any law enforcement officer to shoot in his place for nothing. Let alone we're discussing because somebody just failed to look around and see just maybe we don't need to spend $250,000. Now, with this budget, there are people in this room that have sat and waited for a year to hear what their fate is on this flooding. I haven't heard a thing, and spring is coming. And you know what they got to look forward to? Aldermen and mayors coming along and saying, geez, we're really sorry. Can we give you a hand pumping your basement out? Somewhere along the line, somebody's forgot one thing. There are things that are important. And we spend a lot of money on a lot of foolish things. We need more people, more equipment. And what do the residents of this town get for it? There was an alderman that once said, this council does not gain money from the state, nor the county, nor the federal government. The only sure money we have is from the residents. And I'm beginning to wonder whether they're getting their buck's worth.
Thank you, Claude.
Next, Liz Widmeyer, 908 Sailor.
Hi, Liz Widmeyer, 908 Sailor. You sure I don't have all night to talk up here? It's public hearing. No? Only 3 minutes I got, huh?
Actually,
I got a lot on my mind tonight.
Ms. Widmer, that's my bad. I said that, and
Thank you.
in my opinion, you should be able to speak as long as you want, and anybody should be able to speak as long as they want.
Thank you. If council and the city have already determined that we need an assistant city manager, why haven't you disclosed the full cost of what this is going to cost the Elmhurst residents? It is disingenuous for council to sit up there and tell us that adding this assistant city manager position is actually going to be cheaper just by eliminating a few positions. Why haven't you determined if you can eliminate the consultant positions? According to the city manager, Mr. Grabowski, he's already said that basically the chief is not exactly qualified for this position yet. He said he hopes that in time the chief will gain the necessary experience, and that way in the future we're going to be able to eliminate the consultants. If we need an assistant city manager, what you should do is run a full search, just like you do for the police chief right now. You're running a search, running an advertisement, interviewing candidates. You should do the same for an assistant city manager position. But council is determined to create this position. You're determined to create this position for the last 2 years. You are determined to fill this position with one person without doing a thorough search. Voting against this is not showing a lack of confidence in our city manager's experience or expertise. In fact, this is not about your feelings. This is about doing what's right for the Elmhurst residents. It's about making the decision to determine if the city of Elmhurst has the right funds and this is the right time to create this position. Council is all ready to permanently eliminate a sergeant position. So by that, are you telling us that you do have the qualifications and the experience, the expertise, that you, council, can make that determination that we do not need a sergeant? It sounds like council is telling us exactly that. How does council know that our new chief is not going to want a sergeant? With all the break-ins going on in the neighborhoods, people breaking right into our front doors, maybe we need more officers. How do you know that? Do you have the qualification and the expertise to make that determination? If our new police chief requests this sergeant position to be reinstated, are you going to tell our chief that you already know, through your experience and expertise, how to run our police force? Or are you going to tell our new police chief that you will reinstate that sergeant, because anything less would be a lack of confidence? It's time council start making the appropriate decisions for our city instead of lifting people up over their career path hurdles. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have, let's see, public hearing. Tamara Brenner, 137 North Caroline.
Thanks for the correction on the time limit involved here in the public hearing, although I don't plan to take too much of your time. I did listen and watch the videotape from last week's meeting, which I was unable to attend. I was interested in the conversation about the assistant city manager, which I had asked about at the prior council meeting. What I heard on the tape was that the position is being basically designed around a specific person that's in mind to hold the position, which makes me question whether the position is really needed or not at some level. Also, given that we're talking about a budget hearing, I was kind of surprised to hear that we know the low end of the salary range for this proposed position, but we didn't know what the potential upper limit of that salary range was. Also, we didn't have the information available to hear about the pension obligations and implications for the funding that we, the residents, would be responsible for over time. That information was not available to be presented. Hopefully it will be presented in tonight's Committee of the Whole when you go back to that line item. I also didn't hear, although maybe I missed it based on Ms. Whitmire's comments, what the plan was for the consultants that we have doing a lot of economic development work now. My understanding from 2 years ago was 2 on-staff positions were taken away, and part of the reasoning for that was that it's cheaper to hire consultants than to have people on staff that get benefits. Those people are still being paid as consultants, and I didn't hear what's going to happen to them if we do create this extra staff position. Finally, I was pretty disappointed at the lack of questioning that I heard from the council. There were some questions about things, but there was also some that were just ready to agree without asking some of these questions. How can you agree that this is a good thing to do without knowing the things about how much money is going to be involved? When you're talking about a budget hearing, you don't know the salary, you don't know the pension things, yet there was council people that were willing to just go ahead and agree. And as far as I know, the job of the elected officials is to ask these questions. You guys can ask these questions, we can't, except for in these few minutes here. I've heard long debates from the council on things such as part-time workers at the Historical Museum, for instance, and I think this debate needs to be a little more involved given the magnitude of the position that's involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brenner.
That's all I have as far as those that signed in to speak tonight at our public hearing, Mr. Mayor.
All righty. I will ask for a motion to adjourn the public hearing at this point. Alderman Hipskin, second by Alderman York. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. This hearing is adjourned. We will now move on to item number 4 on our agenda, receipt of written communications and petitions from the public. Is there anyone with any written communications and or petitions from the public? Please rise and present those to Clerk Spencer, who's here to my right. Anybody? Okay, go on to public forum. Clerk Spencer, is there anyone signed up for public forum tonight?
Yes, we have some, I think I put
And this
them
will
in.
be a 3-minute limit on this particular area.
Excuse me for a minute.
Oh, written, yeah, please.
I think I misplaced. Oh, are we, let me look for my speakers. I
We'll
put
get it.
them in the right place here.
Thank you, sir.
Here we go, here we go. Okay, I'm ready. Okay, this is written communication. All right, thank you. We're ready now for public forum. The first person I have is Mario Marino. That's Pazzi DePazzi, 105 South York in Elmhurst.
My name is Mario Marino. I'm the owner of Pazzi di Pizza. And last week, I went in and applied for a permit to open up my patio. And being the weather and Mother Nature being polite to us, we opened up our patio, but I've heard conflict in regards to it was April 1st or not April 1st. And this is my first year of, I should say, last year we opened up March 18th when we got done with our construction. This year, because of the weather being nice, we opened up. And the reason was that our customers were demanding to sit outside. And the surrounding, suburbs like Hinsdale, Oak Brook, LaGrange, all have their patios open. So I just want to know if, if it's, am I doing something wrong? That I don't know if it's, I opened up early or have conflicts.
I'm sorry, Mr. Marino, we don't answer the questions,
Okay.
but if you want to continue and maybe tell us about
I just want to
how
know
important
because,
it is for you.
as businesses today to run a restaurant is hard. And once we open up our patio, we create more sales, which is more tax dollars for the town. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Marino.
Okay, next we have Jim Belden, 719 Berkeley.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jim Belden, 719 Berkeley, and I'm going to talk about electric aggregation. It's coming up tomorrow on the referendum, and I'm going to read some notes that I made this evening. And I'm really excited about all the awareness associated with deregulated electric services for the city. Latest Illinois Commerce Commission statistics indicate that about 230,000 resident customers have switched over to third-party electric service within the last 12 months. This is about 9% of the total ComEd load for residential rate classes. About 25 electric suppliers are serving the residential market, and they are coming up with many innovative product offers. I've recently read about a time-of-day rate structure being offered by a supplier in the Pennsylvania markets that's basically offering a higher price during the daytime and a lower price during the evening to flatten out the load. This type of innovation will be coming to ComEd once the smart meters are installed, including in our community here in Elmhurst. While the referendum is focused on the question of opt-out aggregation program, an opt-in program may actually provide more product offerings with less cost to the city and less public policy risk. And when I talk about the difference, it's almost as if looking at a ballot and being able to look at an opt-in ballot, multiple candidates, you decide which is best for you. An opt-out program is one for all. So it's basically going into a voting booth, getting a ballot, and your selection is either to vote or not to vote. Take it or leave it. The opt-out program, unfortunately, is one for all. All the same contract length, all the same price products, all the same level of renewable energy being sourced from the same certificate program. Opt-out programs take significant staff and legal resources to manage. Besides paying the energy broker an annual rate of $38,000, there are other staff inputs needed to review documents and make decisions. An opt-out program is not without public policy risk. The first contract period that we see, that's going to be a no-brainer. The city's aggregation program will save money against the ComEd supply rates. What happens with future contract periods, and will the City Council continue to be lucky and save against the ComEd future rates, especially after June 2013, is somewhat up in the air. The current ComEd rates are above market because of public policy decisions that were made in 2008. These decisions looked good 4 years ago, but that is not the case now. Also, a decision has to be made on how to consider renewable energy in its offer. In aggregate, our program will spend anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000 per year on renewable energy. Naperville has a renewable program embedded in their municipal service. It costs residents an additional 2.5 cents.
Mr. Belden, if you could wrap it up, I'll give you about 10 more seconds.
Okay. I've got 30 seconds, Mayor, and I'm done. Could I have that?
You know, you're actually over that already. I'll give you 10 seconds,
Okay.
just to be fair.
The opt-out program can use multiple terms, multiple pricing, multiple renewable products. It can provide program flexibility and allow greater choice for the consumer. The opt-in program can be started much quicker than the opt-out program, and savings and environmental benefits will accrue sooner. The opt-in program requires residents to consciously decide what is in their best interest rather than be in a passive state of mind. Thank you, Mayor, for giving me the extra time.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, next, Margie Fitzharris, 172 Addison.
Margie Fitzharris. That's actually my business address, 172 North Addison. I am a resident of Elmhurst, 195 Schiller Street. And I guess I'm not going to repeat what Mr. Marino, hopefully I said your name correctly. We are business owners in town. We don't quite understand why anyone would object to this. We're having unseasonably warm weather. Our customers want the cafes. As he stated, the suburbs are open. The city is opened. It was a news item. We are bringing in more sales because people can leave their office, come and sit outside. And the other thing, I did look up on the ordinances today and saw no mention of a date. I know in our letters when we send them to the liquor commissioner, it does state April 1st in years past. But again, I state we have unseasonably warm weather, and we are trying to bring not only ourselves more sales, but you more sales tax dollars, which we all pay a little bit extra than some of the other businesses in town. So I think you need to reconsider this, and if you could give me the number of the ordinance where it does say April 1st. I could not find it. I did take time out of my day today to look for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fitzharris.
Okay, next we have Brendan Fitzharris, 119 North York Road.
I'm here to speak on the Sidewalk Cafe also. My name is Brendan Fitzharris. I own Fitz's Pub and Fitz's Spare Keys. We have Sidewalk Cafes at both. I want to read a message I got from my manager today about an hour and a half ago. The city came by and told us we can't use the patio tonight. We have already lost 2 tables. People are, I'll use upset instead of the word he used. Could you forward to the mayor? It's all because of 1 or 2 people. They're having a meeting tonight. I know most of you aren't against it. We're having hard times even, paying our bills, doing things. We do pay 2% extra on taxes, and we get a little help from nice weather. I don't understand why someone would object to that. So I know you can't answer questions, but later on if someone could explain it, I would appreciate it. Like I said, business is tough enough right now, which everyone knows, so every little thing helps. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzharris.
John Robiletti, 625 Gladys.
John Robiletti, 625 Gladys. What I want to know is I watched your budget deal on TV, and somebody brought up something from 15 years ago about the rates that seniors and the people that are on fixed incomes. What does that mean? You're going to double it like you did their vehicle stickers? There's people that barely can make it. I don't take a cab. I still drive. But I don't understand why that's brought up at some budget meeting. And the second thing I want to say is listening to the people that are running for the county board. All of them agree that the real estate taxes should go down and cities and villages should make cuts. What happens in Elmhurst? Everything gets raised. Where is all of these cuts and lowering taxes? Thank you.
Next, Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys.
My name is Claude, Pocket 566 West Gladys. I took Mr. York's advice, went down to the library, wanted to find out about this electrical system. that we've got a referendum on. It's amazing what you can find out if you listen. Number one, Commonwealth Edison is stuck with delivering power and maintaining the system. State law says so. Commonwealth Edison doesn't have a choice where it gets power from. State board determines how the citizens of Illinois get power. There's 23 outfits that can sell power. Cities are forced by state law to put this referendum on their books. They want to. That price that your body has asked to negotiate for us automatically gets an increase added to wherever they negotiate. Interesting, isn't it? What you don't know. Mr. York was right. Go out and find before you vote. It's all based on how much you use. Interesting, isn't it? All the things we didn't know but we needed a referendum. Classic. Classic legislation. Also, I will join with others. We have hired an outfit to find a police leader. Now we need an assistant city manager. I go along with Mr. Leader. He wants to drag us into the 22nd century. But he really doesn't want to go about the way our city manager was found. Want to skirt it. No rational reason why. He's all for it. I may not be, but I guess we're going to get dragged into the 22nd century whether we like it or not. But I would wish that if we spend the time to find a chief of police who has the credentials and the background, that we at least have somebody look around and see if we can find an individual with the credentials and back row we need in case our Mr. Grabowski happens to get a cold. Because there's only one name mentioned, and I can hardly believe out of 8 million people in the state that there is only one individual that knows everybody in Elmhurst and can do such a fantastic job.
Claude, if you could wrap it up, maybe 10 seconds.
So please, gentlemen and ladies, get somebody out there to find you an assistant city manager.
Thank you, Claude.
Last, we have Michael Cumray of 570 West Crockett.
Michael Crumry, 570 West Crockett. I wanted to talk about sidewalks, and I wanted to start by stating I honestly wish that the City Council didn't have to deal with this issue. But I'll start off with my bullet points. Petition request for sidewalks on Crockett Avenue should not be grandfathered in. If sidewalks are to be installed, they should be on both sides of the street. Some quick numbers here. There's 31 houses on the south side of Crockett, which is the side requesting or in the petition. Of those, 16 are new houses, 51.6%. 14 of those are older homes, 45.2%. And then there's one empty lot. On the petition, 16 houses were signed on the petition. Of those 16 houses, there is only one house on that list that is an older home, and that person doesn't live there anymore. And just point of clarification, the petition is 3 years old. So concerns with the sidewalk petition. It started as a flawed process, except for the one house. Only the new homes were contacted to sign the petition. The owners of the older homes were not contacted. Why is this? The City of Elmhurst policy states, interested parties must circulate a petition to collect signatures of property owners willing to participate in the cost share program to install new sidewalks. Petition must be on form provided by the city. At least 50% of the property owners must sign the petition for the city to consider a sidewalk project. Each property owner gets one vote. Does a policy state specifically talk to only new homeowners? Does a policy state talk to only enough people to reach the 51% threshold? No, the policy states each property gets one vote, and it's implied that each one of their neighbors is contacted concerning the sidewalk petition. Some would claim that the one sidewalk policy that was implemented in 2007 has been successful. Here's the stats. Dorchester Avenue is on the far southwest side of Elmhurst, has sidewalks on only one side. There's only houses on one side. The other side of the street is swamp wetlands. Willow Road off of Crestview, 10 houses on one side, 5 on the petition, 5 voted yes, exactly 50%. They put a sidewalk in. That sidewalk ends into the street on both sides. It does not connect to other sidewalks. The third one, Gladys. So in summary, the one sidewalk policy has not been successful. It has created petitions where only selected number of property owners are contacted to barely reach the 51% threshold. This is not neighbors working together. The one-side policy is building frustration and resentment among neighbors. In summary, the sidewalk petition again for West Crockett Avenue started as a flawed process. The 3-year-old petition should not be grandfathered in. Thank you again for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it as far as those that signed in.
It signed in. I did see a businessman walk in a little bit late, and Mr. Are you okay? Would you like this? Would you like 3 minutes, or you okay? Okay, very good.
Okay.
I will officially close the public forum at this time and move on to announcements. Anybody with announcements? Clerk Spencer.
Tomorrow's Election Day, just want to remind everyone, and the polls will open at 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you don't know your polling place, you can call the DuPage Election Commission, that's 630-407-5600, or if you want to get on their website, it's DuPageelections.com. And I have one other quick announcement. The Elmhurst American Legion, our Legion here in Elmhurst, Post 187, is in need of donations for the USO. They're requesting socks, gum, hard candy, razors, anything that's not perishable. So if you would like to donate to the USO, you can drop off your donations between the hours of 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. over at the American Legion Hall that's on Butterfield and Spring Road. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Anybody else with announcements? Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Paula Pez and I will be hosting a First Ward Town Hall meeting on Thursday, March 29th at 7 p.m. at the Elmhurst Public Library in the large meeting room. It's an opportunity for First Ward residents to tell us what they think about what's going on in town, and we've got a few updates that we'd like to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Grabowski? We had actually Chief Panico has an update for us. Announcement, actually.
Good evening. City Manager Grabowski, Mayor DeCiani, and members of the City Council. I am pleased to inform you that late last week, the Elmhurst Police Department apprehended Sergio J. Turchez, age 40, and Jennifer L. Turchez, age 25, both from Addison. Elmhurst officers had been conducting a surveillance on Wednesday, March 14, 2012, due to burglaries occurring in Elmhurst. As a result, Elmhurst officers observed Sergio and Jennifer commit a residential burglary in the 800 block of Ellis in Melrose Park, Illinois. Sergio was observed entering the residence by force after repeatedly knocking at the door, while Jennifer waited in the vehicle. Upon Sergio exiting the residence, he entered the waiting vehicle and Jennifer drove away. Elmhurst officers, with the assistance of Oak Park Police, effected a traffic stop on the vehicle and took both Sergio and Jennifer into custody. The Melrose Park Police Department subsequently charged Sergio and Jennifer with 1 count of residential burglary each. Sergio and Jennifer Turchez are persons of interest regarding a number of burglaries in Elmhurst. Elmhurst officers continue to investigate their connection with these burglaries. Also, on Thursday, March 15th, 2012, acting on information released by the Westchester Police Department, Elmhurst officers have identified Jeffrey Haley, age 21, formerly of Villa Park, Illinois, as being responsible for 1 residential burglary and 1 attempted residential burglary in Elmhurst. The Westchester Police Department, charged Jeffrey Haley with residential burglary. He was stopped by a Westchester patrol unit while on a bicycle. This was in response to a complaint of a suspicious person matching Haley's description who had been knocking on residents' doors. Elmhurst officers continue to investigate his connection with other Elmhurst burglaries. I am very proud of all of the men and women of the Elmhurst Police Department for their consistent efforts in diligently pursuing the investigation of the burglaries we have been experiencing in Elmhurst. It was their tenacity, perseverance, and teamwork that led to these arrests. I would like to take this opportunity to thank them for their professionalism and their hard work they demonstrate each and every day in providing public safety services to the Elmhurst community. I would also like to remind our residents and businesses to continue to be alert of suspicious persons and vehicles and report them immediately to 911. It is through this diligence that we can all work together to make Elmhurst a safe community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and well done. It sounds like we caught the bike. Yeah, absolutely. This famous bike burglar sounds like he's all done, which is a good thing. So that's fantastic. That's good news, and again, a job well done. And we appreciate the other municipalities for their help as well in collaborating and getting all of these criminals put behind bars. So, thank you. Very good. Well, that's good news. Anybody else for announcements before I go on the consent agenda? Okay. I will now move on to our consent agenda. I would ask if anyone has a question or may want to vote no on any particular item to please indicate it at this time. Alderman Levin?
Item B.
Item B. Okay. Anybody else? Alderman Kennedy?
Item J.
Item J. Anybody else? Questions? Okay. I will ask for a motion in a second to approve the contents of the consent agenda, lest item B and J. Alderman York with a motion, second by Alderman Morley. And at this time, I ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Morley and York had the, or excuse me,
Morley
or York had the motion, Morley was the second. I apologize.
Okay, I apologize for that myself. Okay, York.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Polumsky, absent. Hipskin.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent. The consent agenda passes, less items B and J. At this time, we'll go on to item B, which are minutes. Clerk Spencer, if you'd like to read the...
These are executive
okay,
session
yeah,
minutes.
exactly. Okay, so we'll read the executive session minutes, but I would ask for a motion and a second to put this particular item on the floor.
So move.
Alderman Levin with a motion, second. Alderman York, discussion.
I just have a technical amendment. I'd like to pull it back to
Okay.
executive session for correction.
We'll take care of that. Thank you, sir. All in favor of, we need to do a vote on that?
Yeah, voice.
To bring back?
Yeah, we're going to refer it back to executive session and clear up any
Very good.
discrepancy.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It goes back to executive session to clarify. Thank you, Alderman. And the next item is item J. It is a recommendation. Clerk Spencer, if you could please read the recommendation.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Affairs and Safety Committee that the city attorney be authorized to prepare the appropriate ordinance to provide the availability of a Class W BBS liquor license for York Market DBA Edelweiss Market located at 555 South York Street. Respectfully submitted, Public Affairs and Safety Committee, signed by Patrick Wagner, Chairman, Paul Pezza, Vice Chairman, and Michael Bram.
And at this time, it is for a motion and a second. Chairman Wagner with the motion, Vice Chairman Pezza with a second. Discussion. Chairman Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll defer to Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Alderman.
Curious.
The original referral that went before your committee talked about in a drawing the potential for the other half of the building to be used for daycare. I just wanted to understand from the committee's point of view if that was discussed and what came of that.
It was discussed, and that was a typo. Oh, nobody can hear me? It was a typo apparently, and nothing was committed. There's no contract to anything like that. So at the moment, it's going to be something maybe other.
So there's not a commitment yet
Correct.
for the daycare center to be a
Right.
tenant, correct? Okay.
And it wasn't a daycare center per se. It was a children's, I think, clothing line.
Play center.
Play center.
Gymboree.
And what we did is I didn't like the diagram that they provided, and so what we did is we had them put a few extra things and had the fire department approve off of some doors, some new doors, that there is no entrance or exit from Edelweiss into that area or vice versa.
Very good. So, Mr. Chairman, you're comfortable?
I was after that, yes.
Okay. Vice Chairman Pezza, anything
I
to
was
add?
just going to clarify that even though it was referred to as a children's center, we made very clear that it is not any type of actual school by definition. And if, in fact, they were to receive this tenant, which it's not even for sure, it's more of a play place for parents to bring their children, like a gymboree where you could have birthday parties and the parent would be with the child.
Okay. Questions, discussion?
I'm good with that. Thank
Okay,
you.
very good. Anybody else? All right, this is a report, so we can do this by voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say no. Report passes. And we go on to item 8, committee reports. Item 8A. Clerk Spencer, if you could please read the recommendation on item 8A, please.
Therefore, it is the recommendation of the Development Planning and Zoning Committee that the City Council authorize the city attorney to prepare the necessary documents for the formal approval of the continuation of services provided by Kane McKenna and Associates, Inc., to complete Phase 2 TIF services as outlined in the letter of agreement dated July 29, 2011. Respectfully submitted, Development Planning and Zoning Committee, signed by Stephen Morley, Chair, Danny Polumsky, Vice Chair, and Norman Leader, Alderman, 2nd Ward.
And at this time, I ask for a motion and a second to put this on the floor. Please, Chairman Morley with a motion. Second by Alderman Leader. Discussion, Chairman Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In your reports, as I'm sure you all review, there is close to 70 pages of reports as it relates to this subject. Before I get into it, in essence, what we're asking for is approval for funds to move to the next phase of reporting. That's the sole commitment that we're looking for this evening. But I did not want to lose that in what I'm going to say next. So, as the committee as the council will recall, at the end of September of last year, and then the subsequent approval, the following meeting in October, the council approved the Phase 1 report from Kane McKenna, approved the funds to hire Kane McKenna for a Phase 1 report. The city actually received a draft of that report in late January. The committee itself received that report the committee and actually the rest of the council received that report at the beginning of February. This committee spent the next 3 meetings exhaustively reviewing all of the information that we had in hand. As the council will recall, there were 3 potential TIF areas that were being discussed. The revised final reports that sit in front of you are dated March 14th. I'm going to go over each report in brief and would certainly be happy to answer any questions, but hopefully I'll give you a quick summary here. We are considering 3 different areas in town for TIFs, for creating TIF areas. The first one is what I'll call the North York TIF area, and that runs, for the most part, it runs from North Avenue on York Street at North Avenue all the way up to Grand Avenue. All of these TIFs that we're considering as a result of these Phase 1 reports qualify for TIFs. In fact, that's what these reports, the intent of these reports are. That's what the approval for the TIF 1 reports were, which was, do these qualify legally? We needed an expert to go and measure the information that was out there to see if these areas actually qualified by law for TIFs before we took any consideration beyond that. All of these TIF areas that we're considering qualified for a TIF district under conservation rules. Those conservation rules state that within a TIF area that's being considered, in excess of 50% of the buildings within that TIF area must be 35 years or older. That's the first threshold that has to be met before you move on. Then there are 13 other factors that are possible. For example, 13 other areas that are possible. If 3 of any one of these 13 are met within this TIF district, then the area legally qualifies, potentially qualifies for TIF. Dilapidation, obsolescence, deterioration, illegal use of individual structures, excessive vacancies, lack of community planning, lag in EAV, just to name a few, not to go through all 13. And as I stated before, all of these reports are on the website. The North York TIF did exceed 63% of the structures in the North York TIF exceed 35 years old. Of the 13 factors that can be considered beyond that, 6 of the 13 factors are found within this TIF district, including a lag in EAV compared to the rest of the city for the last 5 years. You will note on this March 14th report, there has been a slight change in this map as it relates to this potential TIF. As everyone, I'm sure, is aware, there are certain sensitivities when considering a TIF as it relates to our fellow taxing bodies. And one thing I think is important that the committee wanted to show, and we're recommending that the city does as well, is that we had an opportunity in this TIF to actually expand the map a little bit. Churchville School and also Conrad Fisher are actually contiguous to this TIF. And we took that opportunity to actually expand this map and include those properties within this TIF. By doing so, that will allow for more opportunities between the taxing bodies to share in some of the revenue should this become a TIF. And I think that shows a good faith we felt it shows good faith from the committee and also from the council to our other taxing bodies that we're trying to do what's best for Elmhurst, but keep everybody in mind as we go through this process. The other TIF that we considered is York and Villette. This met the threshold of 59% of the buildings were over 45 years old. Out of the 13 factors, 5 were realized out of the 13, where only 3 are required. And the EAV in that area has lagged 4 out of the last 5 years when compared to the rest of the city. There were no map changes made to this report. If you take a look at this report and you're familiar with the area, you will realize that this is all commercial and it is immediately boundaried by all residential. So there was really no opportunity to really shift that at all. The other thing I should mention is, as we go through this process and as we start this process, you start with a map of a certain size. You can always have the opportunity, as you gain information, to reduce the size of the TIF, but you don't have an opportunity to expand the TIF. So that's another reason why you create the map the size you do, and then as you get through it and you learn more, you can reduce it if necessary. The final TIF that's being considered the final TIF area is the Riverside area. That met the threshold with approximately 56% of the buildings over 35 years old, meeting 5 of the 13 factors, and also having an EAV lag 4 out of the last 5 years when compared to the city of Elmhurst. There was a minor map change, you'll note at the very bottom. I think it's property maybe 005. It was just a way to straighten out the map at the bottom. We felt that there was an opportunity there to make a more square area at the bottom of the map. But that is the only minor change. The other thing that's important to note about this potential TIF area is that it does not include the taxing body District 205. I believe it includes Salt Creek School District. The number escapes me, but it's Salt Creek. What is it? 145. But that map was also taking into account we didn't want to overlap certain taxing bodies and make things more complicated than they were. In essence, approval is needed to proceed with the Phase 2 portion of this report. Phase 1, did we meet the legal requirements? And we've completed that. Phase 2 is really what we call the development plan, and that's where the consulting agency works with city staff and pivots off of our comprehensive plan to work on a development. And basically, we've already taken a look at what we have. This is going to tell us what the potential is for the future. It's referenced in the report that this will take about 6 months. I will tell you this, that the next should this pass, and we didn't want to jump ahead too much, should this pass, this committee will take up at our next meeting a rough timeline that we will distribute not only to the rest of the council, but also to the community. But based on the approval, there are certain milestones, 10 days to allow for this, 14 days to allow for certain notifications. We did not want to put out a timeline that was wrong. So we have to go through this process first before we can put out a rough timeline. That being said, to answer some of the questions I've gotten, if we move forward with this, we can expect a draft of this Phase 2 reporting out of the agency that we've hired around the beginning to the middle of May. The committee has discussed, along with city staff and the attorneys, that immediately getting that draft, I want to stress that that's just a draft, it is our intention to hold meetings with our fellow taxing bodies. That would happen also in the middle of May. The Joint Review Board, which has representations from each taxing body, would then happen around the beginning or mid-July. Public hearings would run from July through August. And then, again, these are all rough, but depending on how those meetings go and depending on what input we get, these TIF districts would potentially come before the council for consideration end of September, beginning of October. I know that's a lot to swallow, but we took 3 meetings going through approximately 70 pages of these reports. I'm more than happy to answer any questions, and I hope you support this report moving to the next phase. Oh, and one last thing. I know that city staff has been very diligent about informing all the other taxing bodies that could be affected by this as to what progress we are in. I have also personally been in contact with the Finance Committee at District 205, which is the current committee where this issue or situation resides. They're being charged to monitor it. So I can tell you this, we've been very diligent in keeping all of the taxing bodies that are potentially affected up to speed on where we are on this report. And I hope you support it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any discussion or questions? Alderman Levin.
Thank you. I have two questions. First of all, I misfed you information. It's District 45, not 145, Salt Creek. My two questions are this. You mentioned that 48. We negotiating this one? All right.
Looked it up.
In terms of our two schools that were added into the TIF on North York, can you explain a little bit so I can better understand how bringing those two schools into the TIF is something that helps us?
It allows for, Mr. Chair, if I may, it allows for specifically, let's say, capital projects within that school. There are certain things that you can do, and you have more flexibility with funds within a TIF if you use them within a TIF. And the experts and the lawyers tell us that if there's a school district next to your TIF or within your TIF, it is an easier process, let's say, to distribute a surplus, if you will, versus actually having to vote to take it out of the TIF and then turn around and give it to the school. You can actually more directly steer those dollars. Let's say Churchville needs a new capital project. They need to replace their parking lot. It's just an easier mechanism to transfer those dollars. We could do it without, but this accomplishes two things. It clears up the red tape a little bit, and I also think that it shows good faith with our fellow taxing bodies that we're willing to do it.
Follow-up and one other question.
Sure,
the follow-up is, so if the funds are used for the school district, it's really, the funding would have to be directed to the two schools that are within the TIF, not generally around the district?
Yes, the schools would be faced with how they might take advantage of the money that was spread around within the TIF and what they would do with their dollars that they spend outside.
All right.
But it does not preclude, let's say they wanted to pay for half the parking lot out of their budget and we wanted to pay half out of a TIF. Certainly the funds can overlap.
All right. And the second question I had is, I know that on phase one we received a discount by looking at 3 phase ones at once as opposed to looking at them in serial nature. Are we getting any kind of discount by doing the phase twos at the same time?
We are getting a similar discount, which was actually part of the original the original proposal, which is in here. A couple of things on that. Yes, roughly, if we had to do it individually, right now the price tag is about $70,000. If we had to do it individually, ballpark could be between 40, 45 for just one. So by combining all three, we have that. The other thing is that the city did commit, there's a mention in the report how we lowered the dollar amount Kane McKenna did ask if the city could help participate in some of the notifications that they could further reduce this dollars. And it's a reconciled amount, so we're not going to get charged X amount of dollars just because they finished the report. We reconcile and they submit that billing to the city manager.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions or discussion? Alderman Mulliner.
I just want to make sure, on the Riverside Drive, does that mean that the Salt Creek School is included or is not included?
It is also included.
Okay.
Good. All right. Any other questions, discussion? It is a report. We can do this by voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Report passes. We go on to item 8B. It is another recommendation. I ask Clerk Spencer to read the majority recommendation, please.
Okay. The Public Works and Building Committee recommends that the adoption of the attached amended policy for the installation of new public sidewalks in areas where none currently exist be approved. Respectfully submitted, Public Works and Buildings Committee. Signed by Jim Kennedy, Chairman, Chris Healy, and Diane Gutenkopf. Unsigned by Bob Dunn, Vice Chairman.
And at this time, I ask for a motion and a second to put this particular item on the floor, please. Chairman Morley with a motion, and Alderman Gutenkopf with the second. And, excuse me, Chairman Kennedy's. I apologize, a little mental slip there.
No problem.
So, discussion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. A number of weeks ago, we discussed the subject of sidewalks. We're back here after taking this back to committee to review the original report and the policy behind it. As you recall, the reason behind looking at this policy again was to improve the harmony that was unfortunately broken on Gladys related to the sidewalk installation there. And what we wanted to do is to make sure that that same sort of thing couldn't happen on another block or any other number of blocks. The committee, or excuse me, the city council asked that we bring it back to committee to look at it. We did so, we listened, we heard everyone's comments, and what we decided to do was to take the requirement that was 67% or greater than 2/3 and to reduce that to 60%, based again on the feedback that we heard from many of our members of the council. That still provides us a fair measure of protection because although we saw the success rate in that 70% range, 60% is certainly better than 50%. We did maintain one key piece to it, and that is a no response is considered a no vote. In short, what we felt as a committee was that residents needed to want to have this benefit, to spend taxpayer money, not only of their own, but of other people within the city of Elmhurst, to have sidewalks installed on their street. Certainly, this requires more selling by people on the block. It requires them to go out and talk to their neighbors to get more people behind the project than 50% did. But by doing so, we felt that it's much more harmonious than when more people are involved rather than just getting over the threshold of 50%. And certainly we heard that on another street that people got to just the 50% range. People didn't talk to other residents, and again, that hasn't led to a really harmonious situation. Although it is somewhat challenging that the situation with no response is a no vote, it requires people to take a stand, and it certainly requires people to stand up and say, yes, I want a sidewalk, and therefore have that vote count towards that quantity. Laying back, sitting back doesn't really give you that ability to stand out of the process but yet still be in support of it. It's forcing the issue. Are you with it or are you against it? If you're not going to respond, we're going to assume you're against it. So I will open this up if there's any questions. Certainly I know others will have comments, but in short, what we decided to do is drop the percentage from 67 to 60, maintain all the other pieces. The process is still the same. The blocking petition, the way things are done with the open house, the initial petition that goes around. That's all the same. Really, all we did was change the percentage. Thank you.
Just to clarify, those that are already in the hopper are
Yes.
grandfathered.
Very true. Those 3 streets that are already grandfathered in would continue under the existing policy of 51%. Each one of those would then go to the open house phase when funds are available and logistics allow for the city to be able to do that.
Okay, Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do think it's worth exploring a little bit more this idea of what exactly we mean by 60%. And I think it was a source of intense discussion at our last meeting, and before we launch into that, I'd like to make a few comments about it. We're still maintaining the sidewalk policy is a 3-phase process. What we've done is we've said the first phase is to circulate a petition among the neighbors, and at that point, at least 12 out of 20 houses on a street would have to say, yes, we want to explore what this is going to cost us. That's enough to trigger a really in-depth engineering study by the city. And that'll give residents a really good handle on what the cost implications are and what the engineering implications are. How is that going to affect the way the front of your house looks? Because now we're going to put a sidewalk through it. So phase 2 is the city doing this engineering study, holding an open house to really inform residents. What's it going to cost to have this happen? Phase 3 is the city contacting people and saying, here are the costs. We want you to come back and tell us that, yes, you feel comfortable with that. And what we're really saying is that we want 60% of the houses on any street to come back and say, we're in favor of this. 60% of the people have to take positive action for this to go forward. 12 houses out of 20 have to come to the city and say, yes, we want this. I think we got bogged down in what does a no vote mean or what does a no response mean, and I think we need to look past that. What we're really saying is we want 60% to say yes. And not 60% of the returned petitions, 12 out of 20 houses have to say yes. If we only get 10 petitions out of 20, I don't see how 6 of 20 people can be determining what we do going forward. I just don't think that's fair or appropriate. But I do think it's fair and appropriate to say 12 out of 20 people have to come forward and say we're going to have sidewalks on this street. And that's really the substantive change that we've made here. And I think that that's a high enough threshold that we can feel pretty comfortable that people are really ready to move forward with a big project like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other questions or discussion? Alderman Dunn.
Yeah, at this point, I'd like to make a motion to substitute the minority for the majority report.
Okay, motion to substitute minority for majority. Do we have a second? Alderman Brown. With a second, discussion. Alderman Dunn.
Okay, just to echo what both Alderman Kennedy and Alderman Gutenkopf said, I'll touch on some of those points. But wanted to start off by saying that sidewalks are an important element of the Elmhurst neighborhood feel. The city supports them as a public benefit, and they do that through this 50-50 cost share program, along with the repair and maintenance of the infrastructure of those, which about 85% of the current city streets have sidewalks alongside them. So given the support that we have for this infrastructure benefit, we do need a structured and fair policy to enable this public benefit for those that desire it. And the Public Works and Building Committee has worked very diligently evaluating the benefits and the drawbacks of the current policy, and that was given to us a little while ago because we felt that it needed to be updated. Went through a couple drafts and sent that to the council, and then that was returned back to committee and reevaluated using that feedback from both the council and a lot of public comment. And I think we really came up with a workable policy. What we have is a very similar policy. There's a lot of things that are the same. It's still a 50-50 cost share program. We're still using an SSA to finance the project. The homeowner's contribution will be based on their EAV, or their value of their house. And as Alderman Gutenkopf said, it's basically the same approval process. A petition is circulated, the construction evaluation is done, and if those, as you progress through those, you have an open meeting, and then a survey would ensue to solicit the approval from the street. And if that should pass, then you move to construction as long as there's no blocking petition from the street. What was modified was that one side is now allowable. Instead of a 2-year wait if your project is not approved, you can come back after 1 year. The committee also added a 3-year expiration to any submittal because of the potential of critical things changing on that street. People move on and off it. City priorities change. So you'd have to start over at the end of the 3 years. And then also a 60% of the homeowners are required for the petition, along with the 60% for the survey. The one difference is how to handle non-responses. And that's a subtle difference, but it's actually fairly significant, because if you look at the 5 streets that were approved in recent years, using the counting the no votes, or I'm sorry, non-responses as a no vote, only one of those would have been funded, that being Babcock. But if you go with the non-responses as not being part of the calculation, then you have 4 streets that progress with a successful project, and all those 4 streets were very successful, and the one that would not have progressed would have been Gladys, and that one was troublesome. So that's really the main difference, and I think assuming that a non-response is a no vote is not really consistent with democratic principles. We're going to vote tomorrow, and those that don't vote are not going to assume that they're either yes or no. It also creates I think, a overly burdensome qualification criteria in doing that. I mentioned in the last council meeting when this was discussed that about 27% of the residents on a street tend to not respond on average, and that's fairly significant. Just to close, I had a discussion last week with a resident, and they indicated that they have an elderly parent, and they at times have to go over and read their mail, and that should be considered in evaluating this process. Well, when I walked away from that discussion, it was clear to me that I don't know what that elderly parent was thinking, whether they didn't want sidewalks because they don't want concrete in front of their house, or they don't want to have an extra expense every month, or they really do want them because they like to see their neighbors walking up and down the sidewalks, or having people walking their dogs and the children riding their bikes up and down the sidewalk. So I don't know what that person's thinking, and I can't really define that as a yes or no. So I'm submitting this minority report given those issues for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Leader.
The issue of sidewalks impacts the second and third wards more heavily than any other of the wards. As an elected official, I am neither pro nor anti-sidewalks. I believe that decision must be made by the residents. It is clear to me, as an alderman representing the second ward, that there are as many people who favor new sidewalks as oppose them. Some areas of the ward are vehemently anti-sidewalk. The 3 long blocks of North Growie Woods have been overwhelmingly opposed to sidewalks since the 1960s. That is their decision, and I respect it. My public position has been conditioned by the Civil War on Gladys, which pitted younger people against older, people who own large, newer homes against people that own small, older homes, people who lived on the block for decades against people who have only lived there for a few years, people with larger incomes against people with smaller incomes, people with young children against people with children who have long since grown to adulthood, people who can afford sidewalks against people who cannot, retired people who are on fixed or shrinking incomes against people in the prime of their working careers. Gladys caused deep scars which have yet to heal. There was a razor-thin majority for sidewalks on the north side of the street, but because of engineering problems, it was necessary that the street would have to be narrowed by 3 feet to accommodate those sidewalks. This brought the south side of the street into the battle. So by actual city tally, some 70% of the total homeowners who lived on Gladys opposed sidewalks versus some 30% that actually favored them. In the end, I supported a compromise by which those on the north side of the street who voted for sidewalks received their sidewalks. Gladys taught us that getting along may be difficult, but not getting along can be disastrous. Tensions between both sides became intolerable. Both sides insisted their own position was the only valid one. Emotion overwhelmed reason. Flame fed flame. Both sides were driven by fear. The pro-sidewalk people feared for the safety of their children. The anti-sidewalk people feared for their economic survival. As Gladys is in the second ward, and this issue heavily affects the second ward, and my fellow second ward alderman, Bob Dunn, lives in the most affected area. So it is only right and proper that we look to him for a solution. I believe that his solution offers the best chance of a compromise that can be accepted by both sides. It is not a perfect solution, for there is no perfect solution, but it lies between man's best hope and the harsh reality of this world. It offers the best chance of preventing another Gladys. I support the minority report.
Thank you, Alderman. Thank you, Alderman. Any other questions, discussion? Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had great discussions at great lengths about this topic. I do want to just remind everybody that this is impacting 75 to 85% of the impact is the second and the third ward. I agree with the minority report. I think Alderman Dunn has come to some compromise. I actually believe that the current policy is a fair and appropriate policy. But in regards to negotiation, in regards to compromise, I think Alderman Dunn has struck a chord with what is the best compromise going forward. Alderman Gutenkopf did mention what is fair and what is appropriate. I don't think it is fair to insist that a no response equals a no. We are essentially saying that every single individual on any given street that moves forward with a sidewalk needs to place a vote. We don't insist on that on the upcoming election. Otherwise, none of us would be elected today, since normally the turnout is below 40% or thereabouts. I don't think it's fair to move forward with a no response equals no for that particular reason. I think anything above 50% is something that is fair. The compromise here is to move forward with a policy that is 60% or greater. I think that we need to keep considering what is a fair policy, not on what has happened in the past, and allow the emotions to make the decisions on policy going forward. Let us learn from what has happened in the past and take that into consideration, but let's not take the emotion from that and then develop a policy that would not be fair or appropriate for all residents of Elmhurst. Finally, I just want to say that I believe that sidewalks are a safety enhancement. I think it is a beneficial program that the City of Elmhurst does to allow residents to petition and move forward with new sidewalks in areas that currently do not have them. And I would ask all of you to support the minority report. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, just a couple comments about the 3 current projects that have been grandfathered in. I think the committee, and the committee is, I've been on the Public Works Committee for about, well, the whole time I've been on the council, which is almost 3 years. We have all along on that committee said during that time that we would grandfather any open project into the new policy. So we've been consistent about that. I think it's important to note that those 3 projects were stalled, held up, not because of anything the residents did, but because we as a council decided to either take the funding out of the budget, not fund it, or say, hey, we're talking about a new policy, we're not going to move forward. So I think it's important that you know, we let those folks know that they will be held to the previous, if the majority report passes, or even if the minority report passes, which will change the current process, that those 3 will still be held to the old policy, because we understand it was really nothing they did but something we did. So that's first. Now, for why I will maintain my support for the majority report. For me, the most important factor going into this was getting a sense that the strong majority of the homeowners, residents on a block wanted the sidewalks. Not a strong majority of those who responded, but a strong majority of those who live on the block. Now, I thought our first report with 67% was strong, but understanding the council wasn't comfortable with that strong majority, we backed it off, and I'm in support of the 60%, whether it's majority or in the minority report. But to me, that was the #1 factor. Just touching quickly on 2 points that were previously made, Alderman Kennedy talked about community involvement. I think that's very important, and I think we got to be careful in drawing conclusions applying previous sets of data to a new policy, because parameters are different. If somebody knows that their non-response equals a no, may change their response. So to suggest that if there were X number of non-responses before and that would equate to a new policy, I don't know that we can do it, nor can we make the argument, or nor can I make the argument, well, that may lessen the majority. So I think that's the first important thing. Second, to Alderman Gutenkopf's point about wanting the benefit, I think that's a very big point, to say, yeah, we want you to spend city dollars. We want to spend our own dollars. It's got to be a majority of the homeowners, residents on the block. Again, not a majority of those who responded. Lastly, and I understand that the point about a non-response being a no, that's it's obviously contentious. We had a long discussion about it. But to me, that potentially enables a situation that goes against what was most important to me. If a non-response is just that, a non-response, and it's taken out of the equation, it then becomes possible, and in fact it's happened, that you get enough non-responses, a minority of the homeowners on a street can pass something, can get it passed, can get sidewalks, and I'm uncomfortable with that. I am very uncomfortable. Now, maybe if the non-response clause is in there, we will see a lower number of non-responses, but I think we'd all argue that that's a good thing. One way or the other, that's a good thing. It will force somebody to say yes or no, or if they choose to non-respond again, at least they know that that then means they vote no. But I was very hesitant and would not support a plan where a non-response is not counted, because it can just cause a minority to change the fundamental aspects of a block, not to mention raise taxes in that area. I won't support it, so I will maintain my support of the majority report. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Anybody else? Discussion, questions? Anybody? Oh. Chairman Wagner, and I'll go to Chairman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Chairman Kennedy started out this conversation by talking about how he's been in committee for the last couple of weeks discussing this topic. I disagree respectfully that I think we've been talking about it for 2.5 years. Thanks to Gladys. There's about 5 or 6 people that sit on this dais that grew up in this town, and what makes this town great are the blocks. And I'd almost ask the committee to actually define the term block in its next maybe review of this policy. And God bless Alderman Leader for explaining why the Gladys situation became such a tumultuous situation. By lessening the street 3 feet, it brought that south side in. I objected to that vote because I personally feel that a block is both sides of the block. It's not one-sided, and I think that's where one of the problems come in. I support the majority report because I think it forces the block to talk to each other. That's what's going on here. It doesn't seem like people are picking up the phone and going to that neighbor that you don't know if they're going to vote yes or no and asking them, explaining your position, asking them why they're with their position. It starts a dialogue, it starts communication, and a lot of good things can come from that. So I feel the exact same way I did 2.5 years ago, and I fully support the majority report, and I commend the committee for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Alderman Wagner, for your comments. I concur with the fact that Elmhurst is strong on our blocks, and we see lots and lots of block parties, and we see lots of great camaraderie that comes in that, and what this policy or change from the majority report is to help to maintain that in areas where people don't have sidewalks. One of the comments that was made is that the minority report approach is appropriate and fair, and I disagree with that, and the reason is, although this is an issue that is primarily focused in the 2nd and 3rd wards where areas people want sidewalks, we have to remember that every resident in this community pays for new sidewalk installations, which is totally different than what occurred in those areas that got sidewalks as new developments occurred while SSAs were put in for places like Brenhaven and for expansion throughout the city. So it's a unique situation where all of us as residents are paying for sidewalks in the new areas. And so as a resident who probably had, with Alderman Morley, all but probably a quarter of a mile of the 6th ward has sidewalks, I want a policy that requires the people in that area to really want it, to really push for the desire to have sidewalks, to gain the acceptance by going to all of their neighbors and making sure it's something they have support. I don't agree that the fact with no response is not counted, so that again you could have a minority, you could have 2 out of 3 people respond, and 2 out of 20 on a block are going to go ahead and dictate that a sidewalk goes in. I don't think it's right, and I am obviously in full support of the majority report. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple more points. I think there's a lot of assumptions being, or maybe speculation being stated. We're assuming that these neighbors are not speaking to their neighbors. We're assuming that the petitioner, the residential petitioner, has not knocked on every single door up and down the block. I know that the city knocks figuratively on every single door in the second step of the process when their survey goes around. I think that those assumptions are misleading or incorrect. There is involvement from top to bottom. I know that when I sat in the last Public Works Committee meeting, one of the neighbors spoke to that they, as well as another neighbor of theirs, split up the block and made sure they knocked on every single door. It's kind of, excuse me, it's kind of along the same lines when I hear a statement that police never drive up and down my block. Well, just because you're not looking out the window at that time, they might have driven up and down your block. If a resident is not home, that doesn't mean that the effort hasn't been made. At the very least, the effort's made by the city, and the second step, as well as there's another opportunity when the SSA moves forward to vote it down at that time. I do believe the minority report is fair and appropriate. Alderman Healy did make a statement of, forcing a yes or a no. Again, we don't force anybody to vote in any circumstance. I don't think we should be forcing anybody to vote in this circumstance. There's been a lot of discussion about two residents on a block are potentially going to enforce a financial burden on the rest of the residents on the block. Now, mind you, that possibly could happen in the near future, because I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't think any of my co-aldermen have a crystal ball either to say that that will happen. I can say from the stats that we have seen and the blocks that have been evaluated, that hasn't happened to date. If there was such evidence, then I would lean towards some of my aldermen who support the majority report. The last point about Alderman Kennedy's statement of, all of the residents of Elmhurst pay 50% of new sidewalk installations. That is accurate. The other piece, though, that was not mentioned, that all residents who don't have sidewalks have been paying for years, if not decades, for those residents who have sidewalks but come to the city for a 50-50 cost share program. So all residents with and without sidewalks pay for those replacements as well. I strongly want to remind you of our discussions the last time 2 weeks ago on this very topic. I still believe strongly today that no response equals no is not the right thing. The reason why this went back to committee, I believe, is because the majority of aldermen also believe that same, or took that same stance. I ask of you one more time to please support the minority report that is fair for all residents of Elmhurst, those with and without sidewalks.
Thank you, Alderman. Chairman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clear up a misconception that was just stated, and that was Mr. Crumray came forward and talked during the committee meeting about the situation on Crockett, and he gave the documentation that showed when the survey was done on Crockett that only just over 50% of the homes were surveyed, and so there was, I believe, there was 30. They got to 16 new houses were the ones that were surveyed. The other 14 weren't involved. Certainly, they were ultimately notified when it was ultimately going to go to the open house. But certainly, they were kept out of the process, and so that is obviously something that we want to avoid happening. So the fact of the matter is, it did occur again after Gladys, or around the same time. Whatever, it happened twice. And we want to make sure, as we take the approach of the majority report, that that is minimized for that to occur again. Thank you.
Very good. Alderman Dunn, Vice Chairman.
Just a quick final comment from me. If you look at the 10 streets that applied for sidewalk, the 50-50 cost share program, 5 of them did not pass, and the policy was successful. 5 of them did, and 4 that did have been very extremely successful. And given that fact that 9 out of 10, it worked well, I think we stuck to the fundamentals of the original policy and made some tweaks on it, but the going from 50 to 60% was a change, but counting non-responses as no votes is a very significant change, which I would argue makes it very burdensome to be successful.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other questions, Alderman York?
Yeah, I appreciate all the discussion, and I recommended it to go back to committee. I think it was 4 weeks ago, actually, not 2. But two of the big things, obviously, were the 67%. That's a huge hurdle. And then the other one that I was relatively adamant about at the time was the non-response counted as a no vote. I've had some time to settle down and think about it a little bit, discuss with committee members. And I've kind of been swayed over on the non-response being a no vote. I think it is an expenditure of private funds, and it's an expenditure of public funds. And I think that requires people to take some action. And so I think by having a non-response equaling a no, that's obviously one way to do it. But I think when you're asking people to spend money, I think asking them to respond to a survey is an appropriate thing to do. I like the fact that the percentage has been lowered from 67% to 60%, and I will support the majority report. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Chairman Morley, then I'll go to Alderman Levin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank all the members of the committee who have taken a very difficult situation. I think we all mentioned that this grew out of Gladys. I think the end result, in general, I think the council wanted a policy that would be a little more specific and a little more difficult for this type of share program to move forward, so that we did not have a repeat of the Gladys situation. I think that's what we all wanted. And ultimately, I think that's what we got. We've got 2 reports coming out of this committee that for all intents and purposes are the exact same report with one minor, what I consider minor difference. Maybe a 90% is the same and there's a 10% difference. I haven't heard anything new in the last 20 minutes, so I think we all know what the 2 policies that are being offered. Again, I commend the committee on their hard work. I think both of the reports merit consideration. However, I think the conversation has kind of run out, so I call the question.
All right. We have a second on call the question? Okay. Good.
Me.
No, if nobody's going to challenge the chair on call the question, I think we're ready to vote.
Okay, very good. Anybody challenge?
Just to be clear, what we're voting on is the substitution of the minority report for the majority report. So which would mean a vote in the positive would be to substitute that minority report for the majority.
And I will do this by roll call because it was a close vote last time, so we'll do this by roll call. Clerk Spencer, if you could please.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I jumped up.
Yeah.
Roll call?
Please.
Okay. Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Polumsky, absent. York.
No.
Ipskin.
No.
Healy.
No.
Levin.
No.
Kennedy.
No.
Morley.
No.
Wagner.
No.
Mulliner.
No.
Hesse.
No.
Gutenkopf.
No.
Leader.
Aye.
Right, 10 ayes, 3 nays, and 1 absent.
10 ayes, excuse me.
Oh, I got it the wrong way.
Wrong way.
Three
ayes.
I'm sorry. 3 ayes, 10 nays, and 1 absent.
1 absent. So 3 ayes, 10 nays, 1 absent. That substitution fails, and we will go to the main majority report. And
Call the roll.
I would ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Leader.
Nay.
Dunn.
Nay.
Graham.
No.
Palumski, absent. York.
Yes.
Lipscomb.
Yes.
Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Hesse.
Aye.
Okay. 10 ayes, 3 nays, 1 absent.
10 ayes, 3 nays, 1 absent. The majority report passes. I think, because I don't vote unless there's a tie, I just would like to give my 2 cents. I think the debate was good back and forth. I wish Elmhurst was made with sidewalks throughout the whole town, so we wouldn't even be having this discussion, because it would be a lot easier that way. Also, it would probably be a lot safer that way as well, too. So I've been a big advocate for sidewalks. I had to break the tie last time, and I voted for them. I would have done that again if we were in a tie. So I support the alderman, especially that ward. It's a very difficult situation up there, and you know, when now tomorrow we're going to have an election, and that's that. People vote. So if they vote, they vote. If they don't vote, they don't vote. But that's unfortunately the situation the council has ruled. I have no call here, but I'm an advocate for sidewalks throughout the whole city. So I will move on to item 9, reports and recommendations of appointed and elected officials. My report is going to be short and sweet. A week ago Friday, we had a great day in the city of Elmhurst. We had the announcement that a fine grocery store is coming to our community. That grocery store and their partnership with the city is in Finance Committee, and that will be vetted and worked through the process, just like all of our businesses that we work with go through. So I commend the City Council for taking the leadership to embrace business and to get things done. So there's a variety of ways we can help get this great opportunity across the finish line. The mayor has got the grocer in the boat, and I would ask that the council get this deal done. So thank you. That's it for me. We'll go on to anybody else for reports. Alderman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 things. One, it's actually under other business, but I want to speak to it under reports. A few businesses came out tonight to speak about sidewalk cafes. I just want to clarify any misinformation or lack of information they may have received either from staff or any elected officials. There seemed to be some concern of it not being in our ordinance, so I looked it up online, and it's in Chapter 5, Section 27, Private Use of Sidewalks, to quote, term of permit, a sidewalk cafe permit shall be for a fixed term establishment at the time of issuance not to exceed the 8-month period of April 1st through November 30th. So it clearly does state in our MCO a time frame in that regard. The other section that I would like to quote is from Chapter 3, Section 2, and that's in regards to the city manager's duties and responsibilities. And this states, to enforce the laws and ordinances within the city. Any misinformation that any one or multiple or all aldermen did not allow sidewalk cafes to continue is misleading. It is not the responsibility of this body to enforce the ordinances. It's the responsibility of our city manager and city staff to enforce any ordinances. The next thing is a request, Mr. Mayor. I did notice that within the EEDC, the Economic Development Commission meeting minutes, there was some discussion with the Vice President of Elmhurst Memorial Hospital Marketing and Business Development and Peter Daniels, the President, in regards to where the hospital is of negotiations with Northwestern, the Berteau campus, property tax exemptions, if there's anything that you can shed light on for the community on any of those topics with Elmhurst Memorial Hospital.
The only thing I know is that there's a letter of intent, I believe, that was declared between the 2 parties, and that letter has been publicized, and that the 2 parties are sharing financial information and are in discussion. That's all I can tell you at this time. And property taxes, I'll have City Manager Grabowski touch on that area.
My understanding is right now, application has been made to the county. The appropriate county board has reviewed that application. This is for the property taxes underneath the building, and that has been forwarded to the Department of Revenue for determination.
Thank you.
Very good. Alderman Pezza.
Thank you. Quick question. Will we be able to also speak under item 10A regarding that item? Or is it just going to be accepted, or?
This is a referral, so I don't believe there's actually anything spoken on it. We could, if you want to talk about, well, not really, no.
So if I want to comment, would this be the place?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. I just want to also make clear, I'm sorry the business owners left. What actually transpired there was, I think, probably absolutely no harm done, but unfortunately, you know, as an alderman, I not only represent the First Ward, I sit on the Public Affairs and Safety Committee, I'm ex officio for the City Center, but I also took an oath of office to uphold our ordinances. So you're kind of between a rock and a hard place when you want to tell somebody, but you don't have the authority. Sure, that's awesome. You could go ahead and set up your sidewalk cafes. Even though our ordinance says you can't, I say you can. I can't do that. I don't have the authority to do that. My concern was I saw a couple pop up, people already dining there, and I believed, as a representative of all the businesses in the town, that that was an unfair advantage to the businesses that either did not assume they could do it or get permission from the liquor commissioner or whatever reason they thought they could do it. So I left a message for our city manager that I didn't think this was fair and that I would like to see a way ASAP that we could make this right and make this fair, because to allow certain business to have an advantage when it was gorgeous out and everyone would prefer to eat outside, it just didn't seem fair and right to allow someone to tell a few people they could do it, and the other businesses that could have had the opportunity were not aware of it. I wish we could have had it before us somehow. We could, I'm sure we would have all probably said yes. I know I would have. It would have been nice to have a date certain where we could have notified through Mr. Pervola or whomever, let everybody know, even though it says April 1st, as of tomorrow, you may all put out your sidewalk cafes early so that it was equal and fair. Hopefully that now that this has happened with global warming, maybe we'll have a lot more enjoyable marches to come. I would like to be able to let everybody have the opportunity, however we address it in the future, that would be an option, because I think it's an attraction to our community and it's obviously very popular. So if there is a way we can make this work so that it's fair and equal for every business owner in town, I would love to see that happen, and that was my concern.
Thank you, Alderman. Chairman Wagner.
I'm not a big fan of pulling referrals or commenting them that much. I want to invite most of the businesses that have sidewalk cafes to the next Public Affairs and Safety Committee meeting. It's Monday, March 25th at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. And anybody else for reports? Okay. We will move on to item 10A. It's a referral.
I don't know, is our practice to move this? I can't recall as I'm sitting here. I think we do take a motion to move it. Since it's come up specifically on our agenda, okay. I think a motion would be in order.
I would ask for a motion and a second to put this in the committee, please. Chairman Wagner with a motion, Vice Chairman Pezza with the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. It goes in the committee. And with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Alderman Morley with a motion, Alderman Hipskin with a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. We'll do 5 minutes.